And you can find all of that on our website. In fact, since we're talking about documents, I think a good reference point would be to come to the Freedom Force website. That's freedomforceinternational.org. And when you get there to the landing page, you'll see across the top a subsection called The Issues. And if you'll just navigate to the issues, and at the bottom of that page, you'll see a series of essays and references which include almost all of the documents that we're talking about, Alex, including the Norman Dodd testimony.
Absolutely, and people can also Google Norman Dodd, and the video is out on the web, but it's all the key info is there at the Freedom Force website. We'll give that all out before you leave us again as well. We also have Carol Quigley, and I want to speak some about that and then get into what's currently happening as we come down to the end game. And suddenly they go from denying their plans that they were building behind the curtains. Now they're launching this warmock, this juggernaut against it, so they've unveiled it. And they are pushing it and telling everybody how great it is and how wonderful it is and how fantastic it is. So let's discuss terms here, because we start talking about a communist conspiracy. People think it's a bunch of guys in black uniforms running around in Russia 100 years ago. Can you explain to people why the ultra-rich always fund wealth-transferring programs and always bill it and paint it and package it as if it's a revolution of the people, and why ultra-rich make their wealth and keep their wealth and expand their wealth through monopolies, through collectivist governments in all their forms? Because people go, communism, why are the rich funding it? You know, why do the rich love communist China so much? Explain that to people.
Yeah, it's really looking at the wrong place if you're asking why the super rich are collectivists or gravitate into government. They're really the rich aspect of their characteristics is not the main thing. It's they're power mad people, and money is one of the most important levers of power. And so power mad people, these control freaks, the predator class, in different ways of saying the same thing, they will gravitate toward any mechanism of power. Well, that's government, isn't it? If you can control the levers of governmental power, you can really control the population, and you can have all the money. So it's kind of a merger, and they can pretend to be collectivists on the left or collectivists on the right. It makes no difference. Right and left wings are merely two wings of the same ugly bird, which is collectivism. And like any wings on a bird, they'll flap against each other in order to fly. You need both wings to fly, so there's the appearance of conflict, so that, politically speaking, all the dum-dums down at the bottom of this mechanism think that they're, participating in their own political destiny because they can go to the polls and they can vote the rascals out and vote Republican this time. Oh, we don't like that. We'll go vote Democrat the next time. And the two wings beat against each other, and the bird flies. And so that's true not only in our country, but it's true around the world, and it's true through much of modern history, that the conflict, that the big major conflicts of the world, of which we're familiar, World War I, World War II, and the conflict that goes on today, which I would call World War III, it's now going on, is a conflict to a large extent between two branches of world collectivism.
Okay, going back to G. Edward Griffin, our line dropped to you. Continue where you left off, sir.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden I was talking to a dead phone. But anyway, it was probably the universe speaking to me, because I realized I was digressing from your initial question, which is, why do these people always gravitate toward government? And the word that was used was the super rich, or the very rich. Well, actually, in the beginning of this country, America surpassed the rest of the world through a very simple principle. It's called free enterprise competition. And under those conditions, people compete. They produce the best product and service they possibly can at the lowest possible price. And this leads to great systems of efficiency and productivity, and that, in my view, is what made America so great, because we came from a virtual wilderness. Europe was already far ahead of us, but we bypassed Europe because of free enterprise competition. Well, then about toward the end of the 1800s, these very wealthy people who had become the captains of industry, as they like to call them, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and so forth, had already reached great fortunes, acquired great fortunes, and decided that competition was no longer in their best interest. And they began to look for ways to eliminate competition. In fact, John D. Rockefeller said it best. He's quoted by all of his biographers. He said, "Competition is a sin." Well, of course it's a sin. If you're at the top of the pyramid and you don't want anybody competing with you because you're already in first place, then you say competition is a sin. And from that period of history, about the 1880s on, there was a rather substantial and rapid change in the way Americans did business. Instead of free enterprise competition, they began to coalesce into cartels and form monopolies, and to go into partnership with government to pass laws, always in the name of protecting the people, but laws which in reality eliminated competition and was able to throw competitive advantage in the direction of those with political influence. And so we saw a change in the way people became rich. It used to be they became rich by competing and by producing goods and services. And then by the 1900s, they became rich by not competing and instead using their prowess and their expertise to buy politicians, to create laws that would eliminate their competition and give them unfair advantage. And so
that's how we see the big bankers publicly funding fascism and communism, now declassified that Hitler and Mussolini were MI5 and were basically set up. I mean, this is the sophistication of the Milner Group and this British model, this imperial model of hiding your true government behind front men. And so elites can come in and have the government give them the power to issue currency and credit, then buy up the planet. But still, some people don't want to sell, so now you pass big environmental laws, which the Rockefellers admit they founded, which they also founded the worldwide acceptance of eugenics. Over 100 years ago, as you know, the rock stars were scientists. And these elites were smart. They financed most of the scientists. And they said, come up with systems of social control to divide and conquer people, to dumb them down, to take over government, to centralize control, to take over education, to render the public weak and impotent against us, as Bertrand Russell said, through social engineering that the elite finance, in his own words, a rebellion by the lower classes, or the proles, as he called us, using communist terminology, though he worked for the big money banks and was MI6 himself, and OSS before that, Nobel Prize winner. He said, a rebellion by the proles will be as unthinkable as a rebellion of sheep against the practice of eating mutton, or sheep is what mutton means for those that don't know. So they're saying we're blind, dumb sheep, that sheep don't rebel against their owner when they're getting slaughtered, do they, G. Edward?
Well, no, and cattle don't, and a lot of all those domesticated animals don't, and now we're back to Norman Dodd, because what he discovered when he was talking with the heads of these tax-exempt foundations is that they were laying a master plan which had as its goal how to make the population of America docile, like cattle and sheep, and how to get them to accept all of these things without complaining. And the strategy they came up with was absolutely brilliant.
Stay there. We're going to talk about that strategy on the other side, then bring it forward to current times and then the future with G. Edward Griffin. I'm Alex Jones. This is the GCN Radio Network.